So we have come to the last part of Mrs. Dalloway. We have seen that the day is slowly moving towards the evening, the late evening, and Mrs. Dalloway is about to hold a party at her house this evening. We have also seen how Septimus is a foil character. Septimus is a war veteran and suffering from shell shock. Peter Walsh is the man Clarissa has loved before and now, but she can never have a life with him. She is an affectionate mother and wife, but she doesn't share her life with her husband either. Now, in the last part of the novel, you have the climax. We have two major events here. Septimus Warren Smith commits suicide, and the party takes place. The scenes of Septimus Smith were the hardest for Virginia Woolf to write, because Virginia Woolf also suffered from mental delusions and what can be called insanity. And these scenes of Septimus contain a very terrifying and personal account of what it is like to be insane. In one moment, your mind is clear. The other moment, it is full of hallucinations. When appearances turn into other things, you can see somewhat a similar bizarre experience in Finnegan's Wake by James Joyce. The change from the moments of sanity to moments of insanity is terrifying, and it has a wave-like motion, a rhythmic ebb and flow like that of the waves of the sea. That continuous wave-like motion is there throughout the novel, and it is like a narrative pattern. Septimus is always surrounded by the sea and a deep sense of this wave-like motion. Septimus takes interest in what Razia is doing. At first he was sitting watching the sunlight and remembering the line from Cymbeline by Shakespeare that is oft quoted in this novel in the context of both Septimus and Clarissa. Do you remember that line? Fear no more the heat of the sun, nor the furious winter's rages. He's sitting there looking at the sunlight, enjoying it. I'm reminded of Benjy in William Faulkner's Sound and the Fury, who often sits and looks at the fire. And Razia has been making a hat. She used to be a hat maker before. Now she has been making a hat and she sees Septimus smiling. But that doesn't really make her happy, because he often has hallucinations and unpredictable emotions and expressions. And Razia has been making a hat for Mrs. Filmer, that is a neighbor. She has a married daughter called Mrs. Peters. For the first time, Septimus takes an interest in what Razia is doing. He never does that usually. And he says the hat is too small. And he says it is like an organ grinder's monkey's hat, and makes Razia laugh. Note that she has not laughed for weeks. And when he laughs and jokes with her, it looks like he's perfectly all right. It is in a matter of many weeks that this moment has come. In future, Razia would always love this hat that she made on this day, because that was the moment when Septimus was himself. As they are sitting and laughing, there's a knock on the door, and it turns out to be a little girl who brings the newspaper. Razia, feels very happy and she gives the girl some chocolates and she dances with the girl in the room. And then he takes her home. Rizia takes the girl home. Septimus dozes off at this time, and when he wakes up, suddenly he finds that Rizia is not there and he's terrified to be alone. And then his hallucinations come back. He calls out to Evans. Remember, he was his close friend and Evans had died in the war. He calls out to Evans, but of course, there's no one there. And then Rizia returns. She begins to work on the hat again. Septimus talks about Sir William Bradshaw, his psychiatrist. Must. What right has Bradshaw to say must to me, he asks. What right does Sir Williams or Bradshaw have to decide what Septimus should do? That is what he's asking. Rizia says that is because he threatened to kill himself. And Rizia and Septimus used to talk about death and beauty. And he used to make her write a lot of madness in papers, which Rizia did not really understand. And now Septimus asks her to burn all those papers. But Rizia thinks there are some beautiful things in what they have written. And she does not want to burn them. She just ties them in a piece of silk and puts them away. And he says wonderful things to her. He says she's like a flowering tree. She's a miracle. He admires her because she fears no one. Beautiful moments that they have together. And he laughs and jokes. At that time, Rizia hears the sound of Dr. Holmes downstairs. He has come. Rizia panics. She wants to prevent him from coming up because she is afraid that his presence would make matters worse for Septimus, because they are so happy at this time and she doesn't want that happiness to be spoiled. But Dr. Holmes doesn't care. Dr. Holmes pushes Rizia aside and enters the room. Septimus sees him and he's afraid. And he knows that Dr. Holmes will take away his soul. He panics and he thinks of various ways to kill himself. He doesn't want human nature to be upon him. He wants to be himself. To escape, he thinks of various ways to kill himself. Can he use the bread knife? There are no scissors because Rizia has already put it away. And then he decides to jump out of the window. At that moment, he thinks, I don't want to die. He doesn't want to die. Because life was good. Like Anna Karenina. When in the moment of her death, she did not want to die. But as Holmes enters the room, he flings himself down out of the window with a great force, saying, I'll give it to you. Dr. Holmes wanted Septimus, wanted to take him away. And Septimus says, I'll give it to you. Yes, he's giving himself to Dr. Holmes. What he's giving is the physical body. Dr. Holmes will never get his soul. Septimus is badly mangled and is pronounced dead a few minutes later. Dr. Holmes says Septimus is a coward. He cannot understand why Septimus killed himself. He does not understand. But for the first time ever, it is like Rizia understood her husband. Death is a very important presence in the character of Septimus. And that is what connects him with Clarissa. You already know that Septimus and Clarissa are like double characters. They are foils. One complements the other. In his death, Septimus seems to have come to terms with death. And he believes that there is no death. This is similar to Clarissa's belief that we saw earlier, that even after she dies, bits of herself will continue to live. Bits of herself will become part of the world around her. She will become part of the trees, of people. She'll become part of the water. What is this? You think, is she mad? Yes, Clarissa is neurotic. What is only slightly mad in Clarissa has completely taken over Septimus. He is insane. Septimus and Clarissa cannot gel with the world outside them. They are internal beings. They cannot inhabit a world of Miss Killman's, Dr. Holmes's, William Bradshaw's, even Richards and Peters. They're all after their soul in various ways. Septimus, was broken by the violence of war. He is helpless. Nobody can defend him. He cannot save himself. Dr. Holmes has come, and later William Bradshaw will also try to take his soul, to invade him, to completely change him, to make him conform to their world, which Clarissa and Septimus cannot allow. They cannot be possessed by others. They don't want to share their being with anybody. Clarissa and Septimus fiercely guard their identity. When Septimus dies saying, "I'll give it to you," that is the height of irony. He is giving himself to Dr. Holmes. But what he's giving him is his physical body. The soul he will never give. He commits suicide by leaping out of the window in order to preserve himself so that he will not die. Did you understand? It's amazing. Rizia is in a trance. She can't believe what has been happening, and she suddenly understands her husband. Soon the ambulance bearing Septimus's body passes by. Peter Walsh is standing there in front of the British Museum, and everybody is letting the ambulance pass. Peter Walsh looks at the ambulance and says, "It is one of the triumphs of civilization, this ambulance that takes you to the hospital and gives you life or takes away your dead body. The speed and efficiency of technology. The ambulance," Peter regards it as one of the triumphs of civilization. Look at the irony. When Peter's comment is juxtaposed with the fact that Septimus committed suicide because of science. It was to escape from science and the way in which science will destroy his soul that Septimus committed suicide. Remember earlier in another video, I talked to you about suddenly how one black car, a limousine, a very rich, wealthy car, expensive car, it broke its tires. And everybody speculated, is this the Queen? Is this the Prince of Charles? Remember? Everybody was fascinated by the limousine. Everybody was fascinated by the things. People are dazzled by, people are fascinated by the titles, Sir William Bradshaw. They are fascinated by the aeroplane writing toffee in the sky. They are so materialistic. Life is so meaningless. Actually, these people's minds are closed. They don't see anything. Their minds are full of preconceived notions and prejudices. They have scientific curiosity, but they do not understand the person sitting next to them. They do not understand the human personality, the human psyche, the mystery and complexity and diversity of the human mind. They do not understand. And Virginia Woolf presents insanity as a metaphor for that natural life that D.H. Lawrence also wrote about in novels like Lady Chatterley's Lover. By juxtaposing the Regia Septimus story with the story of Mrs. Dalloway and her circle, Virginia Woolf has built up, step by step, a terrible indictment of the Western civilization and its triumphs, its science, its progress. All this triumph and progress and science has only destroyed us. It has taken away the human from us. Clarissa had a theory in those days that since our apparitions, the part of us which disappears, are so momentary compared with the other, the unseen part of us. Everybody has two parts, the seen part and the unseen part. Since the apparitions are so momentary, the epiphanies we get, the realizations we get are so momentary, the real appears only in a very transitory way. What is permanent is the other part, which spreads wide. The unseen might survive, be recovered somehow, attached to this person or that, or even haunting certain places after death. The unseen part of us, the real, it will survive, Clarissa said. This quotation occurs as Peter Walsh walks back to his hotel. He hears the ambulance go by to pick Septimus's body and remembers Clarissa's passion during their youth. Clarissa was frustrated at how little one person could know another person, because she felt that so much of a person existed out of reach of others. A person's soul was like a plant or a tree, with a small plant showing above ground and a complex unseen root system existing underneath. It is repeated. She did not want to believe that death was the absolute end. Clarissa does not want to believe that death is the absolute end. Clarissa wants to believe that we never completely die and go. Clarissa wants to believe that we never completely die and go. We will remain in this world. Isn't that a beautiful thought? Instead, she believed that people survived both in other people and in the natural world. To know someone beyond the surface, one had to seek out the people and places that completed that person. If you want to know someone completely, deeply, it is not enough to look at that person. You have to know the people who influence that person, or the people who complete the person. You have to know the places that complete the person. The structure of Mrs. Dalloway supports Clarissa's theory. Since most of the novel concerns people's thoughts and existence outside themselves, people's thoughts rather than surface reactions. These thoughts connect to people and things far beyond the people and things that are ostensibly closest to them. Peter, for example, did not see Clarissa for years, but Clarissa lives inside him. Peter lives inside Clarissa also. We are reminded of the various memories that Peter keeps having of Clarissa. Which of these is the real Clarissa? And which of these is Peter's idealized version? We don't know. There is no distinction. Clarissa is all of these. As we think like this, suddenly Virginia Woolf shows us Peter through Daisy's eyes at this point. From Daisy's eyes, Peter seems like a completely different person. Daisy thinks of him as bookish, and she thinks that he is a very good judge of Indian food. We are led to realize that the relationship that Peter has with Daisy is as strained as that of Clarissa and Richard. Is any relationship really possible? Is it possible for anybody to have a complete and perfect relationship with another person? Doesn't seem it is possible. Peter decides to go to the party. He reaches his hotel. He's walking towards the hotel, remember? And he finally reaches his hotel. I'm doing all these behind the scene things right in front of you. And he dines in the common room of the hotel. It is evening and Peter is tempted by the beauty of the evening. And he decides to go to Clarissa's party. Actually, he was not decided before. He reaches Clarissa's street. A number of carriages are standing by because the party is beginning. And a lot of gaily dressed women are alighting from cars. The house is brilliantly decorated and its doors are wide open. The house has a lot of guests inside already. Peter does not know whether he should go in. Courage fails Peter. And then, however, the soul must brave itself to endure. That famous line comes. The soul must brave itself to endure, even though you are scared or you are not sure. Because Peter, you have already seen, is a man of great insecurities, self-doubt, trauma. So he opened the big blade of his pocket knife and entered in. Look at the subtle humor. When he met Clarissa, because of his nervousness, he kept fidgeting and fiddling with his pocket knife. That is a metaphor or symbol of his insecurity and diffidence. When he enters into this room where all the party guests are waiting, metaphorically, he opened the big blade of his pocket knife. He is not sure of himself. His insecurities are playing out. So, this metaphor, Virginia Woolf presents for us. He opens the big blade of his pocket knife and entered into the party, where he doesn't really belong. Now, the party. Clarissa's party is on. And we readers also flit in and out of it, moving through the minds of the various guests at a fast, party-like tempo. Fast, we are all moving in and out of the people's minds. It's an amazing narrative technique she employs here. Those guests who have assembled represent a cross-section of British society. There are all kinds of people. There are servants, dependents and hangers-on of the rich. Lucy, the maidservant, Mrs. Walker, the cook, Mrs. Parkinson, old Ellen Barnett, Mr. Wilkins. There are lovely, unwanted women. These like Ellie Henderson. Clarissa didn't want her there. These are all like characters in the wasteland. There are lords, colonels, professional men, successful men, grand, majestic women like Lady Bruton. And everybody is kind of out of place there. The deep feeling people like Peter, Clarissa, if Septimus is there, Septimus, all those people will feel terribly out of place because they are people who don't belong. The party is a grand success. But at every moment, one is conscious of the artificiality. There are so many people in the party who live that life of artificiality. They belong there. But for Septimus or Peter, they don't really belong. Even though Clarissa does not really belong, she loves these parties because it is an attempt on her part to belong. Inside this brilliance, inside this artificiality, this insincerity, there is ugliness, pain, and suffering. The party is a satiric picture of contemporary Western civilization. Even though this is only one party thrown by one aristocratic woman, this is actually a microcosm of the world outside. This party is like an objective correlative. A satiric picture of contemporary Western civilization that Virginia Woolf has painted. And the satirical picture is complete in bringing in the tragic story of Septimus. The meaninglessness of the party, the horror of the party, the horror of this beautiful, successful party is complete when the news comes that Septimus has committed suicide. Those people didn't know. It is this party to which several events of the day have led. That kind of a party where people don't belong, which is a metaphor for the world outside. This is a very important modernist motif. You have this in To the Lighthouse. You have parties happening in T.S. Eliot's plays. The which one is it? The Elder Statesman, The Confidential Clerk, the one of the plays, I can't remember which one it is. Family Reunion. No. Then there is a party in Marcel Proust's works. There are parties. André Gide has written The Counterfeiters, where there is in the center of in the climax of the novel, there is a party. In this party, the Prime Minister himself is there. Peter Walsh is there. Sally Seton is there. After all these years, Sally Seton, the girlfriend of Mrs. Dalloway, Clarissa, has come without an invitation. And there are the Bradshaws, whom Mrs. Dalloway disliked. So many people. One of the guests during this time tries to make conversation with somebody else, and a curtain kept blowing on him, which he beat back. This is an important symbol in that scene. This symbolizes the boundary between the private and the public. The public that is being breached by the curtain. It is a symbol of man's incessant desire and attempt to communicate with others. He tries to communicate, but the curtain keeps blowing at him, stopping his communication. At this time, Clarissa identifies herself with Septimus. Let's see how. Lady Bradshaw tells Clarissa that a young man has killed himself. Clarissa did not know him, but it affects Clarissa. Even though Septimus is dead, he too thus comes to the party, not in life but in death. The mention of his death is bringing Septimus to the party. Mrs. Dalloway is annoyed at first. What business had the Bradshaws to talk of death at her party? She greatly resents Lady Bradshaw's mention of her death at her party. And she feels very distraught, very upset. She goes away from the guests for some time. She wanders into a little empty room. And then she thinks about this death. She surmises almost correctly that Dr. Bradshaw might be the cause of this man's death, which we know Dr. Bradshaw was. She feels that she is like Septimus. She felt somehow very like him, the young man who had killed himself. Suddenly that man doesn't have a name. He is nobody suddenly. She felt glad that he had done it, thrown it away. She felt happy that Septimus killed himself. The party, its guests, all seemed trivial in the light of Septimus's suicide, in the light of the gravity of Septimus's suicide. And somehow Clarissa seems to realize it. That is why she goes away from the party. The clock was striking. The leaden circles dissolved in the air. He made her feel the beauty. He made her feel the fun. But she can't stay here. She must go back. She must assemble. She must go back to the party, which entertains the oppressors of Septimus and Clarissa. Those oppressors who had led Septimus to suicide. Septimus died not only because of one Dr. Holmes or one Dr. Bradshaw, but because of the society of Bradshaws and Holmes and Kilmans. They are all hardened, hypocritical power mongers. You know, all these people, the society that has gathered at the party, they are all inhabiting the bubble world of upper class England. Clarissa cannot commit suicide. She is not insane. She has to go back to the party. She had never met him. She does not even know his name, but she experiences a moment of clarity. She suddenly understands, like Rizia understood. A moment of being. In the small room when she identifies strongly with him and his dramatic action. She suddenly identifies with him and with his dramatic action of committing suicide. Woolf created Septimus as Clarissa's double. And throughout the book, he has echoed her thoughts and feelings. Throughout the book, he has echoed her thoughts and feelings. In this scene, Clarissa realizes how much she has in common with this working class young man, who on the surface seems so unlike her. On the outside, they are completely different, but inside, deeply, they are the same. There is an emotional unity between the two, a spiritual unity. Thinking like this, Clarissa looks out of the window and sees in the house opposite that old woman going to bed. Remember that old woman? She used to look out of the window. It was like a metaphor for the human attempt to communicate. Clarissa looks out of the window and sees this old woman going to bed. She remembers the line, "Fear no more the heat of the sun." Thinking of Septimus, she feels happy that he has ended his life. And she then returns to the party. Meanwhile, at the party, Peter Walsh missed Clarissa. He wondered where Clarissa had gone to. He was sitting there chatting with Sally. They were old friends, remember? Laughing at Clarissa and her parties, at her snobbery. And Sally, being a mother of many children, she rises to go. Peter also has to go, but he does not want to leave without talking to Clarissa. So he is looking for her. It is actually Clarissa who spoiled Peter's life. You know, a man can love only once. A man can love only once. And Clarissa rejected him for no reason. He spoiled her life. She spoiled his life. But he still loves her. Look at the paradox. And the novel ends as Clarissa is approaching Peter. Nothing will happen. She is coming. They will say goodbye. Nothing will happen. The perfect hostess is coming. Now, a few comments on the novel. The might of Britain and its colonial history that is evoked in the novel very powerfully. And this novel expresses and overcomes the stress of post-World War I Britain. The role of the woman in the British society, especially the aristocratic woman, and the influence they had over the British political hierarchy is clearly delineated here. Virginia Woolf was a living example of how a woman can influence the society. The novel shows the fissures in the middle class as well as in the wealthy aristocratic society, both represented by the trauma of loneliness, haunting Septimus, Clarissa, and Peter.